It's Song Talk Radio with Michael, Neel, Phil, and the gang.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, episode 2021. No, that's not right. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. That is the plan, anyway. I'm your host, Mike Proudfoot, and with me are the members of the Song Talk Radio Action Team, my co-host, Phil Emery. How are you, Phil?
I am very good and excited. Excitedly good.
Those Dukes up as a fighting Phil Emery in this corner. And in this corner, nasty Neel. Hi, Neel. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to be the gentle one in the corner, just like taking it easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
He's got no sensitive.
Let him tire himself out. Do that little rope thing. During this show, please feel free to send your comments and questions to @SongTalkRadio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or send it to feedback@songtalk.ca, and we'll share them with the rest of the audience. And please visit songtalk.ca to find out how you might be a guest on the show. Tonight, we are talking to some of the top songwriters in Canada. Canada? The world?
I don't see
the known universe. Tonight we are very fortunate to have us.
Yes.
So you're lying.
Yeah, I'm lying. On this show, we're going to reveal our contributions to the second annual Song Talk Songwriting Challenge. The challenge is open to all of our listeners, and for those of you who are interested, there's still time to enter. So hopefully what we feature on this episode will inspire you to send us your songs. We already have had a number of submissions, and they're quite wonderful. So we will be featuring our listener songs in February. Do we know what day on February? Does it matter?
February 16th, I think it was.
February 16th? Wonderful. So get cracking. We want to hear what you can do. This year's song challenge is pretty straightforward. Write a song that has the same chord progression the whole way through. And the same measures too, right? No holding on to a chord at the end of a verse for a turnaround or such. Theoretically. So, we don't have any news and we don't have any viewer mail, which is a little depressing, I got to tell you. So let's get right to it. We have our Song Talk members. Neel, your song. Tell us about it. Where did the inspiration come from? How did the process go?
So after we proposed this challenge, I think it was back in November-ish or maybe late October, something like that, 3 months ago. And I woke up one morning with a lyric in my brain. It was off of a dream or something. I'm not really sure, but I had the line, "You've seen the other side." And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. What does that mean? But it reminded me of a book/movie called The Lovely Bones, which I had read almost 20 years ago and seen the movie when it first came out in the early mid-2000s. And for those people that don't know, The Lovely Bones was a book by Alice Sebold. It was basically about this teenage girl in 1973. The book basically opens with her murder. A guy in the neighborhood lures her and murders her, and the rest of the story is really about her living in this kind of in-between world between Earth and presumably heaven, and has some kind of effect on the grieving process of her family, and the family and the police trying to find out who the murderer was and that sort of thing. But it really has this, I mean, obviously it's a sad story, but ultimately hopeful as to, an interesting look at the afterlife. And that's what really kind of drew me into the book, was that the author actually had a kind of a daring approach to say, look, this is how I see it, and this is how a possible afterlife could actually look. And it's like, okay, it's kind of interesting. And she meets people in that world, and it's kind of surreal and psychedelic and strange, and yet it's connected to her earthly life as well. So when I had a day off, I actually found the movie on Amazon Prime, and I rewatched it, having not seen it in about almost 15 years, I guess. And as I was watching it, I opened up a Google Doc on my phone and just sort of started writing down some ideas, some lyrics, snippets and things of images that I saw, feelings that the characters were going through, that sort of thing. And then from there kind of developed mostly most of the lyric. I came up with a chorus lyric almost right away and a melody, and and then and then built up bits and pieces of the lyric, and then finally sat down at my piano one day and tried to hash out what was going to be the chord progression for this song. And very quickly I came up with a pretty standard chord progression that I found. And I completed that draft of the song. I had two verses, of two pre-choruses, two choruses, and a bridge, all hopefully with very contrasting melodies. And because that was a real challenge for me, was trying to draw out, different melodic shapes and different melodic ranges from the same chord progression. And then I sat on it for a few days, and I kind of found that original chord progression I wrote was a little too conventional for me. It was just a minor chord progression with the major five, which I've done a million times, and many composers, musicians, songwriters have done a million times. So I wanted to come up with something a little bit different. So I tried a different chord progression. The second version kind of ended up a little bit weird, a little too far flung. And I sat on that for a little while, and then finally I decided to come up with a third chord progression that I found reflected the song better because it was more haunting and more interesting, and it allowed me a lot more space than my first version, especially in the verses, which I wanted. So that's what I eventually went with. So I did record the first version of my song, and as well the third version. I didn't really record the second version. I just recorded the piano part, and then gave up on it very quickly because the second to third progression was pretty quick. Like I abandoned the second one fairly quickly, whereas the first one I just kind of sat on for a while. I was like, I don't know if this is right or not. But
did changing it affect the lyrics, or did the lyrics stay the same?
Well, it was after I had established the final chord progression that I went back to the lyrics at that stage and really just refined. There wasn't anything in the cadences or whatever that needed to be fixed. Although, there were a few of those instances, but they would have had to been fixed in the first version anyway, because there's a couple of things that were kind of clunky and didn't really fall right. So I knew I had to give the lyrics a final refinement, and I did that after I came up with a third chord progression and worked on it from there.
All right. Should we take a listen and talk about it a bit more?
Yeah.
Sure.
So why don't we play my first version a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
Let's hear it.
That pretty snow globe, your safe life. Little one, you see no harm. Too familiar, a warning sign. Hold on and don't give up. You've seen the other side.
So that was your first version.
So that was the first version, and that chord progression was D minor, C, B flat, and A major. So it was like a minor 1-7 or major 7, D minor, B flat, 6, major 6, and major 5. So it was pretty straightforward. Probably a chord progression I'd used before many times. So I wanted to do something a little bit more original. And as well, I found that when I did the second and third versions, the melody of the chorus, I managed to lift it a little bit higher than I had in the first verse or the first version. I'm not really sure how exactly that worked, but it just managed to pull the chorus a little bit higher, so a little bit higher, better contrast in the chorus, I think. But so the third version is. Although the other thing about all the versions that I'm writing is that the chords always changed on every measure. No matter what I did, I think just because of the way I wrote the lyrics and the phrasing I wanted of the lyrics, it just meant that the chords changed every 4 beats. That was pretty much it. So the third version actually wrote instead of a 4-bar loop, an 8-bar loop. So it was the the final version is A minor, D minor, C major, G major. And then I flipped to G minor, then C major again, F major, then C major, then E7 to get me back into the A minor. And it's that G major to G minor flip that had to consult our good friend Frank Horvat about this. I asked him, what do you call that when you do that? And he's like, that means you're going to the parallel minor. Because you're going from
parallel minor.
Is that different than the relative minor?
It is different than a relative minor because the relative minor would be a different letter name.
So like a relative minor of C would be
A minor. But
so what's the parallel?
The parallels, you're on the same letter. So you're going from
so it's A minor. Right.
I'm going from G major to G minor. And that's something I hadn't done before. I've always wanted to do that. Many songs do that. But actually, our friend Blair Packham recently did an interview about his song Last of the Red Hot Fools, and he was showing how the chord progression worked. And it's a pretty 1-4-5 kind of song, but in the bridge, they actually modulate to the parallel minor key and go right down. So it's like it's been done a million times. But
nice.
So the parallel minor is a minor that's the same key, the same chord.
The same letter name.
Same letter name.
Right. So when you go from a G major to a G minor, so it's really only is one note difference. But the thing I did, because you're going from a G major to a G minor, the note that changes from the G major to G minor is the third. The B changes to a B flat, and then you get a G minor chord. So I was very deliberate in my piano part and in my vocal melody to make sure I hit the B flat when I make that the chord change, to make it clear that we're going to the parallel minor. Because if you stay on the first and the fifth for at least a little bit of that after that chord change, it's not entirely clear that you've gone to the minor until you use that third.
I see. Should we now hear the finished song?
Now we can hear the finished song.
Let's hear the finished song so we can. Well, the other one is still in our minds.
Yes.
So pay attention to that minor.
Yes.
There'll be a test.
Little one, you see no harm. Your pretty pictures, your trusting smile, familiar face, a warning sign. One step too many, you're gone for good. Hold on and don't give up. Hold on. You've seen the other side and live beyond your years. Please tell us what you know, even though we cannot hear. like glass, bottles crashing in waves, a single light to show us the way, one flicker to say you're here. Let go. You must let go. Let go. You've seen the other side and live beyond your years. Please tell us what you know, even though we cannot hear. When the people know, then you'll be free. A falling icicle will break the wheel of pain. Little one, confront your fears, find solace in your dark place.
Very
nice.
cool.
Yeah.
It is.
Speaking of
side.
prosody, it does sound like what it's about.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
I got a couple of questions for you,
Yes.
just about the structure. So so you have your chord progressions on the verse. You waiting a bit before the vocals come in, right? Whereas on the chorus, they come in right at the top of the. I'm just thinking of how the ways that you've made the portions, and they're quite distinct. And then on the pre-chorus, you're not doing the arpeggios; you're doing sort of just solo notes, right? So that's
Chords, yeah, just
like
block
solo
chords.
chords, yeah, and then fuller chords for the chorus.
Yes,
And what
correct
was
on
the thing-
all those notes. Yes.
Okay, good. I'm getting better at figuring these things out. And then on the bridge, what did you do differently to separate that?
Bridge, the melody's a little bit different. It starts on a different note than the other ones, and it's
So
more
the
of a
vocal
trip.
melody or the where you started the piano?
The vocal melody.
Right.
And as well, it's a bit more of a triplet feel. It's a bum, 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 bum kind of thing, as opposed to the other sections are more of a straight feel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really probably the bridge is the thing I kind of, I don't know if I struggled with it so much, but I was like, oh, what do I do? It was a little more deliberate. It's like, okay, triplets.
Right. Almost different for the sake of being different at that
Yeah,
point.
just for the sake of being, and even the piano solo section, I was like, all right, if it's instrumental, I can come up with a different melody, no problem.
That's true.
It's true in a piano solo. I was like, why not? And I actually, the song did need a breath there before the ending, because it was like heavy lyric all the way through. So I found that it did need a breath there anyway.
Right. Okay, cool. So what'd you think?
Yeah, it's the adding the other chords really does expand it. The first one was very kind of
Square.
square and sort of pretty straightforward. It's you wouldn't like it doesn't scream that this is like one chord progression all the way through because the melodies are so complex, which I thought was kind of neat.
Oh, thank you.
There's a lot of chords there.
What do you got? You got like 8. You're repeating 8 chords.
Yeah, and a couple of them do repeat, like the C major repeats in the second half, and I think that's really it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so what is the structure? 3? Is it 3 verses?
It's no, it's 2 verses. So it's verse, chorus. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Verse, pre-chorus, chorus. Then bridge, and then kind of half a verse, like a
Right.
coda that's
coda.
like half a verse. Although,
Why
well,
did
the
you
solo in the
decide
middle,
to
that's
not
solo.
do another chorus out instead of just a coda? Did it just feel like that was
Yeah.
right, or
What's that? Sorry.
why did you decide not to end with a chorus? Since up
It
until
just
that
felt
point
right.
was
It was
structural.
meant to be a haunting song,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to end it with those lyrics.
Okay.
And I also, staying true to the challenge, although I did cheat once, but we'll get to that in a minute. Staying true to the challenge, I wanted that coda to sort of hang on the last chord of the progression without resolving back to the beginning of the progression. Because typically, even that's not a cheat if you at least come back to
Yeah.
one after that.
We'll be the judge of what's a cheat.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if you guys did pick up on the sheet that I did do.
I'm not sure. What was it? Phil,
So-
actually, you get a chance to guess first. Phil, did you
Did
catch
you pick up on it?
the rule breaking?
I don't think so. Unless, no, I can't. I didn't see anything because again, the chords were complex enough that I wasn't after a while, you're not paying attention to the chords. You're just kind of listening to the music, which is kind of the point, I suppose.
Yeah. So after the first chorus, I repeated the entire intro, the full 8 bars originally, and then went into the verse. And when I listened back to it, I was like, that's way too long before you get to the second verse. So I did decide to just cut it in half. I only played the first 4 bars
I'm so
and then
disappointed.
repeated it for the verse. Right. So that's my tiny little cheat. But
I'm
think it's
very
okay.
disappointed, Neil.
Well, you see, that's how
Gave
it
the
starts.
parameters, and you couldn't listen to a simple instruction.
See, it starts that way, and then it's kidnapping, and then it's
slippery
murder.
slope.
Exactly.
I'm not going to prison for you, Neil. I'm telling you, I'm
Interfering
turning
in
you in.
elections. It's insurrection.
That's right.
Never should.
This is how it starts.
Never should have gone to it.
Well, I think we're done with you, Neil, right now.
We're not angry, Neil. We're just very
Should have
disappointed.
worn a striped shirt.
So,
Yeah, I didn't notice it. It's
Yeah.
I didn't notice it.
But you would have noticed if that interlude after the first chorus was way too long.
yeah. It's a hard thing to do a song that's that slow and that open because I think it's, especially now, it's so easy to go, oh, the song's too long, oh, the song's too long because it's slow. And it may not be, because to someone who hasn't heard it before, it's a different experience than someone who's been writing it and hearing the song.
When I did my electropop songs, I was like, everything is so bloody short. I wanted to do dance music songs and I expected them to be long, but they were all like under 3 minutes because a lot of lyric and a lot of, up tempo kind of stuff. But this one, I was surprised actually that my first version was actually only 2.5 minutes long. Because it was a lot denser, but this one, because I left so much space in the verses actually got, in terms of minutes and seconds, they got long. The entire track is just over 4 minutes now. So it's a fairly long song now.
Yeah,
I have
it's
a
always challenge.
suggestion. I don't know if you're going to take it further. In the chorus, you say, even though we cannot hear. If you say, though we cannot hear, it'll scan better, and it means the same thing.
Though, yeah. It's a good idea.
There we go. That's
Take out the
that's all I got.
language.
Yeah, it's a neat,
that
it's a
was
neat
great.
tune.
yeah.
And-
Nicely done.
Think of, like, if I hadn't described what the book was about. I've never written a song based on a book before. It's kind of a first for me too, right? But if I hadn't told you what the book was about, what would you think this song was about?
Something similar. I thought, like, reading the lyrics, when you talk about the other side and a light to show the way, and there's a few other things like that. I mean, other things like Falling Icicle and Wheel of Pain is a bit more abstract, but some things seem pretty concrete. Live beyond your years implies a mortality. So there is an aspect of the lyrics that, like, I knew nothing about the movie or the book, but I still got a sense of it from the song.
My problem is that I actually read the book.
Okay.
So there was a bunch of things in the lyrics that were direct, like the icicle was like a direct reference to the book. So I think I would have picked that up.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
but
Yeah, because that was kind of the hope that if you did read the book or see the movie or whatever, then you might read into it and be like, oh, I wonder if this is about love.
Yeah.
Right, it would
Like,
inform the hearing of it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that it stands on its own and that it could also be, it's good for you if you read the book too. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause
So-
I have no familiarity with either, and it still was really intriguing. And I think
good
you
book.
got the imagery across.
yeah, it's a good book.
yeah, yeah.
Too bad you had to cheat. That's all I say.
What can I say?
All right,
I hope you guys will forgive me.
we will. We will. Phil, let's talk about yours.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention is of all the songs we haven't talked about, a huge hit was Werewolves of London by Warren Zevon,
Yeah.
which is a one chord progression song all the way through. Well worth a listen because it is a good song. He has a definite hook.
Did you take any cues from that song for your song?
Not so much, but if you do listen to the song, listen to how the guitar solo acts as kind of a bridge, because the bridge, because it's one chord progression all the way through, it could get a bit tiring, but the way the guitar solo is handled, it kind of pushes a different route. So it sort of sounds like a bridge. It's actually a really well-written song. It's definitely well worth a listen. It's one of those songs that seems so catchy, you don't kind of pay attention to how well it's actually written,
Though when you mentioned it, like thinking about it, I go, yeah, that does sound like one like progression song, because it was kind of a story song and it just goes on. There's a few of the ones when we did the show about it, I was very surprised to hear that it was the same chord progression over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Warren Zevon is a great songwriter, and
He's quite
and that
good.
helps too. Speaking of great songwriters and lyricists, Phil, tell us about your song.
Well, this one was a real challenge.
Yes, the songwriting challenge.
The singing challenge, which is good. So there's a couple of things I think I might have, in hindsight, chosen a different starting point. A lot of times I'll start writing.
I said, where did you start?
Well, a lot of my songs start off from when I'm practicing, and I'll start coming up with a riff, and I'll sort of build out that. And then I had this riff for a long time, and it was like a D. It was a bass riff, actually. It was like a D, E, and G. And I played that for a while, and I actually brought it to a couple of guitarists over the years, and they kind of played around with it, and just nothing came from it. And there was two possibilities for this challenge I was going to go with, and I chose this one because I kind of always wanted to do something with it. So I started. I looped it on my computer, and I had a melody. I had the first, basically the first verse, which I had the melody, which is a 2-part melody. So I looped that on my guitar, on my computer, and started to, figure out what the melody was. And I couldn't find any chords that went with it. And it was really weird. I couldn't figure out what it was. And I'm just going like, this is strange. Is this like some kind of a minor? So I actually reached out to Frank Horvat.
Frank.
And I said, like, what the hell is this? Because it's like, it seems like a major, but when I played a major chord on top of it, it didn't really sound right. And he thought it might be like, instead of a D, it was like an A minor ninth or something. So it was a challenge. And then I realized it was a little bit too low to sing. So I moved it up a tone. One of the advantages of working with a band is you bring in a song, and it makes it really easy to change things on the fly. Like, I'm feeling a little bit, throat's a bit sore today. Can we, play it like half a tone higher and half a tone lower? When you change the key of a song, the note relationships change a bit. like a song that's written in C will sound different if it's transposed to C sharp or D sharp. I mean, all the different relationships between those notes change a bit, and it changes the sort of timbre and the sound of the song. And so this kind of really threw me, the whole thing. So the way I got around it, because I couldn't actually figure out chords to go on the verse, is I just didn't play any guitar in the verse. But it's actually, so it's kind of like a 1 to a minor 2. The phrase of the bass is a 1 to a minor 2 to a 5, but it's kind of passes through the 5. But basically, so it's 1 and 2 all the way through. So what I did was just changed, not even the way the chords move, but the way the chords are played, sort of to kind of get a bit of a hook. Because otherwise it would just be 1, 2. But basically, the song came out from looping the bass line and then kind of doing stuff on top of it. And, finally moving it to guitar to kind of figure out what the hook was. So it's kind of fun. And then
Did you have a breakthrough moment where it started to coalesce and started to work for you?
This is a difficult song. I'm usually able to do music really quickly. That's always the easiest part for me, is the music. I could do a song in about half an hour. It's never been but this one actually was a real kind of struggle for me, trying to figure out how to get the chords to fit on top of the melody. It still sounds a bit weird, and I'm not sure if it's because maybe I should have moved it a tone, like half a tone instead of a tone. It's it was good. It really kind of forced me.
You actually wrote a lot of songs on the bass. Is this stumbling block that you came upon? That's not normal, right? Like usually you write a song on bass, you can find the chords pretty easily. I remember one of your Parkdale Hooker songs, you said you wrote the bass line and you brought your guitarist. He came up with something that you never would have thought of, but it fit.
Yeah.
Right? But,
and I sort of thought about maybe giving it to him because he could always figure out, what to do with it.
Right,
but it was so weird. Because it's not like it's a 1 and a 2. I moved it up to E, so it's E and F sharp minor. But when I'd play E and F sharp minor on top of it with a melody, it sounded wrong. So it's such a weird tune, and I'm not sure if it's in kind of a weird mode or something, or I don't know.
And Frank Horvath couldn't illuminate that a little bit for you?
Yeah, he what he did sort of kind of didn't sit in my brain. In some ways, I was thinking of kind of like a police synchronicity kind of guitar thing.
Yeah, okay.
But I think one of the big stumbling blocks is I'm not Andy Summers, so
darn the luck.
That gets in my way a lot too.
Yeah, and he wasn't replying to any of my emails, mainly because I don't have his emails. But so it's an interesting song. I don't know if I'd do anything more with it.
Well, should we take a listen and talk about it on the other side?
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
All right. Let's hear it.
See is a lie, and what would it take
Very cool. What's it called, Phil? What's the song
stuff.
called?
How Can You Stay?
How
Which
Can
is
You
like the
Say?
first, that's basically what I'd come up with when I came up with a riff.
Right.
How can
It's
you
a
stay?
really really hooky chorus for something that's basically two chords. Yeah.
Well, and I had trouble, like I wasn't very inspired by the chorus. Like the only reason I came up with that chorus was because of this challenge.
Mhm.
So,
Now, when you go into sort of the, I don't know, bridge part, like where there's a change in instrumentation, you sort of go back to your verse for like a beat or two and then go into a bridge. What was there a reason why you just didn't go into that, for lack of a better word, the bridge part? With
sorry,
that
one more
kind
time.
out of a chorus, you go into back into what sounds like the verse, like the bass part, and then you go into kind of the sort of like a cure instrumental sound that acts as sort of a bridge
Yeah.
before you go back. I'm just curious why you didn't go right into the bridge, why you went to the bass,
It's,
like the verse bass part, and then the bridge again.
yeah, it's something I might try. It just seemed kind of natural.
Yeah.
Initially, I had a third verse, but then I was thinking, I don't know if it really needs a third verse.
Mhm. It
So,
reminds me of the Dance Cave and like Lee's Palace and Nuts and Bolts kind of stuff.
yeah.
This corrosion and really nice sonic textures to it.
For sure.
Yeah, but it's a weird song. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
well, good. I mean, we've run the gamut. 8 chords, 2 chords.
With a passing little thing, yeah.
What'd you
It's
think,
interesting. I mean, very clearly a bass player's song. Like that bass line is so catchy
Yeah.
and grooving, and it really drives the song. And you're right. Like the guitar part is almost secondary, right? It's like no, this is about the bass line quite clearly.
Yeah.
And you really differentiated your chorus really well. Like it pops out. It's got that lift to it. And even the second half of your verse, you're hitting a couple of money notes in the melody and kind of giving it a little bit of difference, and then building up to the chorus. The chorus is interesting. It's asymmetrical. It's like 3 lines of melody and then bleh,
Yeah.
right, and like that kind of threw me off the first time. I was like, what? I'm expecting the last line of melody to sort of resolve it, but nope, you're not going to really do that, and you're just chugging along with it. No, go back to the bass line.
Well, because I did initially, but then I realized because I had the hook, and I
Yes.
think if you're doing a hook, sometimes you have to make sure that you have the hook really clear,
Yeah.
like you leave space for it.
Yes.
So I actually knew before I wrote the chorus that I needed a short word before that da 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 to set up the hook. You want to give it enough space.
yeah.
So I kind of actually started with that last word and worked backwards.
Oh,
So because I knew I needed that, in fact, I thought it was going to be now.
Right. You needed some place, like some pivot point
Yeah.
right.
that now it begins,
Yeah.
or still it begins in this case.
Yeah.
I thought maybe about making the chorus longer the second time around, but I don't know.
It
possibility.
It felt right. Like I asked about why it didn't go right into the bridge, but both of you, when I had made decisions ultimately based on what it felt right, and I think that's probably one of the better guides to writing a song. It's like, well,
thank
you can use song structure, you can plan it out, you can call Frank Horvat, but ultimately you got to go with what feels right.
Yeah, I was just calling Frank Horvath for identification reasons. Like, what do you call
poor
this
Frank,
thing?
if he's going to get calls from people now, like song doctor Frank Horvat.
Doctor.
He has to start one of those like 1-900 numbers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You got a music theory question?
I don't think he's going to appreciate that.
Well, we'll include his phone number in the show notes, and then
That's a good idea. He'll love that.
And it's interesting. It's interesting, Phil. Too, you put in the instrumental bridge, which is really a very high contrast point as well, right? Very cool. But yeah, to me, it really harkened back to The Cure or some kind of early '80s new wave.
Yeah, very Killing Joke sound to the bass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very sad actually. My bass pod Pro XT died just after I finished that. So
Just after you finished it, okay.
yeah, because I wanted to do a bass line for Michael's song, but it kind of died on me, and
Oh,
it's
jeez.
yeah, I really like that. They don't make a lot of bass oriented.
Yeah, because I have the guitar
simulators.
pod and it has 5 bass settings, but they're kind of shitty.
Yeah,
They're
they're not
never
great.
good as a
So
So you
dedicated
need to
thing,
get a
but-
real bass pod.
Yeah.
they don't make them anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Software
Now, do you think?
software's pretty good?
So normally I'm such a sucker for forms. I always go verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, end. And a lot of our guests have not been doing that. So what do you like? I don't think it needs another verse.
Another verse?
think
No,
so.
I don't think so. It seemed like it's long enough.
Yeah, it's
like it's
Yeah, I mean,
3:21.
musically and instrumentally, yeah, it's sounding great. I mean, we didn't have a lyric sheet, so I'm not sure what you were trying to say, and sometimes that dictates. Okay, I've got, here's the progression of my thought, and I haven't finished it, but I wasn't quite sure what you were singing
The one
about,
thing you
so
could
I can't
do is
comment that way.
the one thing you could do is do a half a verse after the instrumental break, and then launch back into the chorus.
That would be a tough one because the verse actually has 2 sections to it. It has an A and a B part.
Yeah. Yeah, but you just skip the second part of it.
So you do the
Or you do the B part by itself because that's hookier, and then into
Oh, okay.
just a suggestion. I mean,
Interesting you
right.
mentioned The Cure, because if you listen to, I think it's Love Song, but their songs sound like perfect pop songs, but the arrangements are so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like Love Song starts like there's a minute before he sings, there's a verse, then a solo,
Great
then
intro.
and then a pre-chorus, then a chorus, then another solo. Like it breaks all kinds of songwriting rules, but again, it sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was good stuff. So no, it was a good challenge.
Yeah.
I think next time I might do something a bit more of a conventional chords as opposed to something that's so riff driven.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's
All right.
Well, I mean, you got to go with your wheelhouse, right? I mean, you're a riff guy, so play
Yeah.
to your strengths, Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, sure.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Well, it was a challenge, definitely.
So,
I went about it differently. Last challenge, I went through 3 songs before I ended up with something that I like kind of made me happier and kind of fit the challenge.
like 3 completely different songs or 3 versions of the same song?
No, completely different
3
songs.
completely different songs. Okay.
Some chord patterns stayed the same, but it started out as kind of a Cars song, like really robot-y. And anyway, that was before. And it ended up being, much calmer than that. This one, I'd started out with, it was a challenge and I had an idea. I'd seen this tip that Steve Earle had given for cheating with a drop D tuning. He said, instead of, all right, can illustrate for anyone who's watching, instead of dropping down the E chord, the E string to a D, you just use a capo and you move it up to the 2nd fret,
Oh, okay.
barring everything but the low E. And so instead of a drop D, it's a raised E. And then that means, so then you're playing, a nice, so then when you play an E chord, like by playing the D, you get this nice big open sound.
oh, cool.
Okay, I want to work with that because it's
Interesting.
just a parlor guitar that I use, and I wanted it to sound bigger because it's only little. And so that was where the kind of the musical inspiration came from. And then I had another song that the verse was okay. I liked some of the lyrics. The chorus wasn't really doing it, so I lifted a line from that kind of piece of a song. Her perfume, an invitation hung like her perfume in the air. And I go, okay, I'll write a song around that. And so I found a 4-chord progression, 3-chord progression that used that and worked it out, brought it to the Song Talk meetup and got some feedback. The most useful was a lyrical feedback. was because it was a kind of a story song, and I was telling the story of two groups of people, two couples, and people got a bit confused. So I go, okay, I'll just make it about that one couple. So that helped make the lyrics a little easier. And I was still trying to get it to work, and I couldn't. And then I didn't call Frank Horvat. I went to you guys.
Yes.
And so Neel, you gave me a great drum beat.
Oh, thank you.
And all of a sudden it grooved, and I was happy with that. And Phil, you kindly offered to do some guitars for me. And so I was working on it. And then I was still not loving it. And then I was saved by an angel. My girlfriend, my partner, Laura, offered to do harmonies for me. And she's also a bass player. And so she came over. And so we were just like warming up, playing me on the guitar and just singing. And it sounded great. Just came together, you know. That's what happens when you work with someone who's really talented. And so, and we went to, okay, let's lay it down. And at that point it went, oh shit, what we've been playing at really grooved, but what the tempo I'd given you for the drum track was a bit too slow. And so like 2 days ago, I think it was, I went, Neel, can you send me a faster drum track? And so
which is stupid easy, because it's like change tempo, export tracks.
Right. So that was great. Whereas Phil, I sent it to you and I go, I'm changing the tempo, and I never heard from him. I go, well, okay, well,
I got time for tempo changes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's due tomorrow. You're not getting it. But fortunately, Laura is a good bass player too. So so we started laying it down 2 days ago, Sunday. Yeah. And so she was really, really helpful about, okay, well, we need more of an intro. And she was the one that said, I think it needs to be faster. And I go, yeah, I think you're right. So she was just super helpful in that. And she did some wonderful vocals on it. And all of a sudden it really came together. And so what I have is very raw. It's just us two singing and guitar, bass, and your drums, Neel. But it came together well. And I think that I'm going to keep going with it because I think there's a lot more potential in it. Cool. So we could take a listen, and if you have any thoughts or questions afterwards on the other side,
what's the
I'll
title?
do my best to be straight with you. It's called Out of Reach.
It was Danny's birthday. We were gonna paint the town. He is a hell of a fella, so our friends started hanging around. Sherry was so done with bullshit, she wanted someone whose life she could share. Danny boy was slow on the uptake, bruised by a previous heartbreak. An invitation hung like a perfume in the air. It's not out of reach. It's not out of reach. Don't you ever believe that love is out of reach. Somebody's gonna run the stop sign. Somebody's gonna pay the bills. Even when you reach the mountain top, from there it's all downhill. Dan and Sherry were quick to get married, but now it's always the same. It's so hard to remember how them first loving embers burst into such a flame. It's not out of reach. It's not out of reach. Don't you ever believe that love is out of reach. go to Arizona. Let's breathe in the desert air. Let's flow down the river. Hold hands and dream. It's not out of reach. It's not out of reach. Don't you ever believe that love is out of. It's not out of reach. It's not out of reach. Don't you ever believe that love is out of reach.
Trying to be positive
cool.
in dreadful COVID times.
Great tune. Great tune. I love it.
Yeah, I like the hell of a fella. You had this part of the line where you had these internal rhymes like hell of a fella, previous heartbreak, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, thanks.
And the chorus, it's a really strong, sing-song chorus. Like it's clear that that's the chorus,
Yeah.
which is important
you want.
in this. Yeah.
That's where the open D really came in handy because it filled it out. Because I didn't play the lower D string, or sorry, E string, in the verses. I just saved that for the chorus, and then it seemed to open it up more.
Right. I was wondering what you did there when I was listening to your guitar part isolated, because I was like, did you start bar chording it or something? Like something sounded different. It sounded fuller. It sounded, yeah.
Yeah. So I left the E chord alone,
The E string,
playing the
yeah.
verses, and because I'd capoed up the top 5 strings, then when I played the D chord but barred, like capoed, I still had the open E, so it made it much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been jonesing for a much louder sounding, bigger sounding guitar, and I don't have one, and they're all sold out. So I'm trying to figure out ways to get one.
Did you notice, Mike, when you were writing this, that your second verse is 4 bars shorter than your first verse?
Yes.
Okay. Was that on purpose?
Is it 4 bars long? I mean, I chopped a whole other segment out of the first verse.
Oh.
But I figured it's a repeating chord progression.
Yeah.
It can be as long as it needs to be to tell the story.
And that's what's cool about this song, is that the first verse kind of meanders a little bit more. Second verse gets a little bit tighter, but even the first time I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, is that shorter than the first verse? Then I actually sat down and counted it. I was like, oh yeah, it's 4 bars shorter. It's 1 loop shorter.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
and what is the chord
bass.
progression? I don't think you said what the chord progression is.
It's an A D E. I mean, it's an A with then you drop the B the bass down, so it's an A with a
It's
G sharp.
it's A E D E.
E. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 3, but it goes between 2 of them.
And
Yeah.
that's a
But
1-4-5
It's mostly
more or
the 3
less.
chords. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
basically
it
a one.
sounded pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's a 1-4-5 with that one little middle weird bit in the.
Yeah,
With
and then
the
once
drop.
Laura added her harmonies, I'm going, oh, this is sounding a lot more kind of country-ish. And
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the harmonies were nice. They're really nice.
so, and I want to play it live with her because it was so easy playing live. I mean, I feel bad, like, because the first time, like, I put down a guide vocal, and then she's laying down the harmonies, and she's, having a little bit tough time, and then she realized, oh, wait a second, I'm trying to harmonize with someone who's off pitch. So she did them right, and then I went back and did my vocals
Yeah,
actually in tune, which it turns out is the key to a successful song.
No kidding.
And what's great is the it's not out of reach, which is obviously the name of the song, is like such a strong chorus, and it's such a simple concept, and it's a very tight classical pop song in a lot of ways.
It's very sing-songy. I mean, unlike my song and Phil's song, your chorus is just a few words. Or both Phil and I have a lot of words in our chorus. But
true.
that's the other way. I mean, the melody it shoots up a little bit, but it's also much simpler in terms of language.
Yeah, it was almost a placeholder. Like our guest last week, Jay Gordon Wright, said of his current song that's out that was the words that just fit his chorus, and he didn't think of changing it. And when I was putting together this song, Out of Reach was like the chorus words were the words that I was using, and I went, oh, I'm not going to change it. It fits perfect.
Yeah,
It does,
really
actually.
well. Yeah. And the bridge is beautifully done because it's nice and quiet dynamically, and again the melodies are much more drawn out over that same chord progression. So yeah, very nice.
Yeah, that was something
you turn
that
you turn it into a first person perspective. Let's go to Arizona. Let's float down the river. Everything else is sort of in third person, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's something that a bridge can do. It changes perspective, so you get a different view on the story that's being told in the song. And so, the narrator or the singer of the song is trying to encourage these two that, don't give up, that it's not out of reach. And then the bridge is the narrator in a relationship that, sort of, I don't know, exemplifies that.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
I was struggling with it and hating with it, and then 2 days ago, working with Laura, she made it better, and all of a sudden now I really like the song and I want to do more with it.
Yeah, it's good to do these kinds of things. So what do you think for you guys was the takeaway from this exercise?
I didn't need to call Frank Horvat for help. I could just talk to my girlfriend.
I asked my wife, but she didn't help me at all. She was like, parallel what? I don't know. Takeaway. I'm actually fairly proud of this. I was a little nervous at the beginning that because I'm not a strong singer, that melodic shapes and things are going to be. I was afraid that my verse and chorus were going to sound too samey. But somehow I managed to pull it out. I don't know.
It worked out well. Phil, what's your takeaway from this?
Well, I think the great thing about doing something like this is that it makes you really focus, as opposed to sitting, playing your guitar and making stuff up. You actually sit there and go, okay, here's the chorus. The chorus has to be different than the verse. But you can't cheat by going to a different chord or going to a different key.
Is that
you actually have
though?
to.
Well, in this context, that's cheating, but in general, that's not cheating.
No,
That's not cheating, but I mean, in this way, it makes you very conscious of your melody choices and how you separate the parts of your song.
Yeah.
Whereas I think sometimes if you're just sitting down with the guitar and make stuff up, stuff can kind of sound okay, but you don't really think about it. And I think this, where I didn't actually have a chorus for mine, I had to sit there and go, okay, how do I make a chorus that is different from my verse, by starting on a very deliberate, different note. Whereas normally I would just, you might do the same note or something. So it's...
Yeah, for me, it was the opposite. The chorus was the first thing I wrote. And then I had to think about how my verse melody was going to be different.
I like these challenges. I think restrictions actually can aid in creativity.
Absolutely.
And it's, from the show that we did and then from working on this, taking like a single chord progression and how do you make it different? How do you make a whole song out of it? Like use dynamics and vocal melody variations and all. I thought it was a really instructive and fun exercise. Though for a lot of it, I just didn't care for this song. It was just like a chore. And then at a certain point, it started, thank you, Neel, when I got your drum beat and then, okay, finally it's grooving. Okay, now I kind of like
Beats
it.
Are everything,
and it just kept getting better from there. Beats matter so much.
It totally
Yeah.
matters. Yeah,
But,
and also,
I love the challenges.
Yeah, and the challenge also opens up your ears to listening differently. Because every time I listen to a song that that Eric Alper sends us or whatever, I'm like, wait a minute, is that the same chord progression all the way through? Because then now I'm starting to listen for it, right? Whereas before it wasn't necessarily a thing that I would be, that we always talk about the sort of focused listening idea.
Yeah.
Like, are you just listening to the bass line? You're just listening to how the drum track works. You're just listening to the vocal melody. Now, to add to that list, am I listening for, is the chord progression change in the chorus?
And
Well, and I think it's also that's one of the changes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing songwriting as a hobby, but for professionals, they have to write a song even when they're not inspired. And this is how you do it. You sit here and you go, okay, I have to work this out. Where's the hook? How do I put the hook in? Okay, I put the hook in. And that's kind of always the crafty part of songwriting, not the inspiration, but the
craft
technical.
is the good part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the part you can work on and improve. You can't work on getting inspired. I mean, I guess you can go to places, but the craft of songwriting is what you can work on. And it's why people should listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
I think so.
This is where you learn.
So
New ways to improve your craft.
We've had a number of guests who come on the show and say they've got in their iPad, phone, notebook, whatever, a list of titles, right? So when they have to write a song or they feel that they need to write a song and they go to their list of titles, that's essentially setting up a songwriting challenge for yourself. Say, this is my title. Now can I work with this? And that zeroes in your focus and you work from there. As opposed to, like you're saying, Phil, just fumbling around the guitar or literally a blank page where you don't know where to start. When you give yourself a definitive starting point, that helps.
Maybe that could be our next challenge.
I think it should be. The two challenges
We all write the same. We start off with the same title.
Because the two challenges we've done up until now, the first one was lyrical, but it was also musical. The happy lyrics with a minor chord progression. This one was purely musical. So I think the next one we should be doing something that's a purely lyrical challenge.
Yeah, I think. Did you hear that? All right, it's the landlord banging on the pipes. Oh, wait, no. That's all the time we have tonight on Song Talk Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you who are working on your Song Talk Challenge, please send them in. You have a month. We want to hear them.
Yep.
Send us your impressions, not, impressions of actors and things. Just send us your mail. Talk to us. For God's sake, talk to us. Send that to Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Song Talk Radio, or send us an email to feedback at Song Talk Radio. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel where you can see us in little boxes, and sometimes you see live performances when that happens. And please stop by our site at songtalk.ca. Subscribe today for the Song Talk Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and wherever else you can get a podcast. And sign up for our free newsletter, songtalk.ca. And also on this site, you can find links to products and books and things that we talk about on the show. We'll have a Song Talk meetup at the end of January, which is now virtual, so you can join us for everywhere in the world. So, hi to our friends in Australia and Turkey and elsewhere. So join us at the Song Talk meetup. You can find out more information on songtalk.ca. And that's it. If you want more Phil, and who doesn't? If you haven't had your fill of Phil, where can they find more Phil?
You can go to philemery.ca.
And Neel, where is there more Neel?
NeelModi.com.
There we go. And this is all you get of me. How much do you want? I'm only a human.
Or you can. This counts more than human.
All right, you can go to Instagram at ProudFit420. See pretty pictures sometimes. And stop by the website at songtalk.ca to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. And please keep on writing and stay safe. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
We went a little bit over.
We did. That's okay.
5 minutes.
Well, there's software we can just slightly speed it up.
That's true.
Sound like a chipmunk, slight chipmunk.
Right, here's my song. It's going to be really quick. It's now at 140 BPM.
Cool. Great stuff.
Yeah. This was a fun challenge. It was a good challenge.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like, I didn't enjoy the process. I enjoyed getting to where I got to, and now I quite like my song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was I didn't love my song, but I'm starting to like it a bit more towards the end.
Yeah, me too. Didn't like drafts 1 and 2, but 3 I'm pretty happy with, I think.
Yeah, I hated a lot of what I was doing. I was going to bail at one point. I was like, I can't do it this time. I've run out of time. And I thought, hang on, I've got a Sunday. What can I do on Sunday?
At the beginning, I was actually thinking to do this on like virtual guitar, to play acoustic guitar on my keyboard, because I'd be more, I'd be, if I lean on the piano, I know I can do arpeggios and chords and do interesting things on the piano, but I can't be as interesting with a virtual guitar. So can I still pull off this challenge? But then it was just like, nah, piano.
Do you have an iPad?
What's that?
Do you have an iPad?
No. Well, yeah,
Okay.
My wife does.
Okay, because GarageBand on the iPad, the virtual guitar on that, you can do some amazing things with it. Like some really like infinite sustain and really crazy string bends and things.
Yeah. I mean, I can do that. I'm using this. There's a company called Music Lab. I have an electric and an acoustic guitar from them that I've had for years, and I used a lot of that on my first album and stuff. And you can do all those things. You can do arpeggiated. You can do finger pick plus chords. You can do chords. You can do hammer on. You can do bends, slides, all that stuff. But I don't know. It's a little too many key switches for me. I just wanted to keep it simple and use the piano.
Nothing wrong with doing the piano. I mean, it works really well. You know?
No, I thought it was a great song. It sounded like what it was about, which is,
thank you.
Really good. Oh, by the way, forget Frank Horvath. Laura just downloaded Cakewalk to her new computer, so I might be calling on you for help.
You're on Logic, though, aren't you, Mike?
I'm on Logic, yeah. And oh man, I was having a hell of
couldn't
a
be on
time
Cakewalk even if you wanted to.
recording. Sorry.
Your
With
Mac
Macs?
couldn't be on Cakewalk even if you wanted to. Then again,
I had
us
a hell of
Windows
a
users
trouble.
can't be on Logic if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I was trying to record vocals and I was getting reverb, even though it was a dry feed. It was driving me crazy. I couldn't figure out where I was getting reverb from. It was like this really weird tin can sound.
Or was it a delay from latency?
No, I tried. Thank you, because that's what I thought. But no, I was playing with the latency as well, and that didn't seem to change it either.
You must have had a bus set up somewhere.
I don't know what it was, but it was like I had the old project, which was at 110, and it was everything sounding great. And I go, okay, let's just re-record everything in 130 in a new project, and I had a hell of a time with it.
Wow.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Technology.
Because I was going, Laura just downloaded Cakewalk, and I'm like, and it's basically like this. See how easy it is to work. Here's how easy. Fuck, it's not working. So it wasn't a good example.
I'm on a couple of the Cakewalk groups on Facebook, and it's amazing how many people have technical problems and can't get it working. Can't get it working. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty user friendly, but you're right. I mean, this stuff you end up hitting walls every once in a while, and it's really frustrating. Yeah. It's not fun, but
Yeah. So I'm going to try it this coming weekend and just do a first dive into Cakewalk and see just something basic, just to see what the interface is like. I mean, they're all kind of the same. Like,
they're all basically
you got to get stuff in,
ripoffs.
you got to record it, and you got to get stuff out. Sorry, what'd you say, Neil?
They're all Pro Tools ripoffs, more or less.
Yeah, I guess so. So Cakewalk was owned by Gibson at one point?
It was owned by Gibson. Before Gibson had it, Roland had it. Before that, I think Cakewalk was its own company.
I see.
Then Roland bought it and then sold it to Gibson. Gibson abandoned it, and it got picked up several months later by a company called BandLab. And BandLab offered it basically for free. Like the skeleton of the program, like the basic program, was free. They stripped out a lot of the third-party plugins that we used to pay hundreds of dollars for when it was owned by Gibson. But it's a full-fledged, fully featured DAW for.
Yeah, I was looking at it. It's like I haven't recorded it yet, and gone, what's the catch? Like I paid way too much for Logic, and this fucker is free.
Well, and then
there's also Reaper, I think, which is a free one. But
Reaper's free, but it's not supposed. They ask you for $60 US.
Oh, okay,
not a lot, but you can get away with just dismissing the "ask me for money" thing all the time.
Right. It doesn't like put an audio bookmark on your projects or something.
No, I don't think it does anything like that. So essentially, it is free. But
every 30 seconds, it goes.
Speaking of things that suck you in to get you to pay money, there's an app, and I don't go for these, TikTok things, but it's pretty funny. It's called Reface. Have you heard of this? I'm sure all the kids are doing it. What it can do, and it's amazing how quickly it does it. So you take a selfie like of your face, and then it inserts it into movie clips.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's amazing. Like if you like, there was one of the Spider-Man ones, like when he's a kid, it de-ages you. Like put you on Jack Sparrow or Mad Max or Rocky, or not Rocky, Rambo, or
Oh, cool.
it's really worth checking out. It's called Reface. And,
Okay.
you get a certain number of free ones, and then it's $30, or you can just wait and it'll restore after a while. But you will have a laugh.
I have to try it out.
Yeah,
And then they're talking about this deep fakery stuff.
that's what it is. It's deep
Yeah.
fake.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
and it's instant deep fake. And you watch that and you go, holy fuck, I can't believe anything I see in video now.
You can't.
I don't even believe you guys are real.
No,
Don't.
I'm not.
That's right.
No.
Now. I'm
Yeah.
I'm a simulacrum.
run by an AI. My battery's about to run out.
Yeah, so I need a bit of recharging. I'm gonna go
Me
make
too.
supper now.
Okay.
Good show, guys.
All right.
And,
Good show.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Talk on Thursday.
Bye.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.